Sometimes you have too much description and sometimes you don't have enough. So how do you find the right balance? Well, lucky for us, good old rhetorical theory has our answer. Over the last year or so, I've had the exciting opportunity to work with many of you on your writing. Not only has it frankly just been fun to see the variety of projects you've been working on, but it's been really satisfying to get into the details of your work and help you to find ways to express your vision more effectively, whether it's been a multi-genre memoir, a creative technology blog, or even a handful of poems. And of course, for many years before that, I've been in writing classrooms, doing very similar work, often with pretty new writers. And across them all, I often find myself writing comments that ask writers to give me more detail and, just as often, to give me less.
Wow, you sound like a man who sure knows what he wants.
Well, I can appreciate that it might sound a little inconsistent, but it's not that I can't make up my mind, and it's not just a matter of what kind of mood you happen to catch me in either.
No, it's just that you're asking for the opposite of whatever someone is doing because you like to be difficult.
No, Bud, it's not that either. But it can be hard sometimes to find satisfying explanations for why writers do what they do. Especially if you ask the writers. For all their skill at doing the thing, they can often have a hard time explaining it in anything but idiosyncratic and impressionistic ways. So, at times like these, I like to turn to rhetorical theory, and today is no different, because I think a statement made by the scholar Lloyd Bitzer can point us in the direction of describing things with just enough detail, but not too much. In his 1978 essay, Rhetoric and Public Knowledge, Bitzer says, "We are aware that bare facts differ from facts which, when related to our interests, become weighted facts or items of personal knowledge. That is, facts or truths whose existence requires our personal subjectivity. There are in the physical world literally billions of factual conditions, bare facts, which, when known to us, do not engage our interested participation in such ways that our participation weights or transforms them. On the other hand, the experiential world presents to us many weighted or personal facts, which are what they are because our participation gives them a status and invests them with a value they would not otherwise enjoy."
Okay, so much for talking about writing, I guess.
Hold on, Bud. It's true that Bitzer isn't talking about writing specifically, but he's getting at something that is applicable to writers. So let's look more closely and see what he's really saying. In essence, he's saying that there are two kinds of facts. On the one side, we have what he calls bare facts, or we could call them objective facts, things that are true about the world independent of us. And on the other, we have what he calls weighted or personal facts that gain some kind of meaning because of our interaction with them. So, for example, it is just a fact of the universe that a given room might be 302 Kelvin. But if you know that you're going to visit a friend who keeps their living room at 84 degrees Fahrenheit, you may be dreading your next book club meeting and digging around in your closet for a short-sleeved shirt. The room's temperature is just a fact, but the way you interact with that fact gives it a weight, a significance that it just doesn't have by itself. 302 Kelvin, who cares? A long book club in an 84-degree room, though, that becomes a problem. And as Bitzer points out, there are billions of facts in the world that mostly don't matter to us. For you and me, the growth rate of an individual frog somewhere in the rainforest doesn't make a material difference in our lives, but maybe for a graduate student in frog science school, their participation in the fact gives that frog's growth rate a weight or status that that fact would not otherwise enjoy.
So I'd like to reassert what I said earlier about so much for writing.
Wow, do you have somewhere to be?
You know perfectly well that I don't.
Okay, so then let's chill out and make sure we understand the concept before we look at the application.
Whatever, sounds real boring.
Fine. The short version is that most facts don't matter to people. But when we interact with those facts or participate with them in some way, they become weighted or meaningful. They're transformed into something that matters. And rhetoric is the tool that can engage our participation and transform facts into meaning. So take a passage like this. The sun was at a 45-degree angle from the horizon. The sky was blue and several cumulus clouds moved at average altitude across the sky on a moderate wind. My car was traveling southwest at 57 miles per hour, and I was listening to jazz with an average loudness of 67 decibels. My heart rate was around 110 beats per minute, and there was some tension in my abdomen. The car was speckled with dusty spots left over from a passing rainstorm the week before, and the odometer said the car had 97,000 miles on it. I looked at my GPS screen, and it said I was 13 minutes away from Lucy's house. The western meadowlark perched on a fence post by the roadside, called out, and then flew away toward the foothills. Here we have a lot of facts, some of them comically specific, but facts nonetheless. But what we do not have are weighted facts, facts that mean something because we, or frankly anyone, are participating with them. In fact, the narrator of this story seems to be doing everything they can not to participate in these facts. They're detached and impersonal, and even though we often think of detail as being on the virtuous show side of show don't tell, these facts actually prevent us from knowing what's going on. Yeah, objectively, we can note the narrator's elevated heart rate and abdominal tension, but are these signs of anxiety or excitement? It's common to say that the only difference between the two is how we interpret them, but this passage offers no interpretation, just the facts. And beyond that, how many of these facts are actually important to know? Yeah, we get a thorough and objectively accurate description of a lot of things, but that's really all we get. In a situation like this, I'd be likely to tell the writer that this passage is overloaded with detail. There's a lot of information, but there's nothing here that helps a reader to know what to do with that information. These are a few of what Bitzer calls the literally billions of factual conditions, which, when known to us, do not engage our interested participation.
Oh, that would be a good tagline for the show. Writing with Andrew, the show that does not engage our interested participation.
You're just full of charm and good humor today, aren't you?
Every day, bud. Every single day for the last several thousand years.
Well, speaking of a good attitude, we could also get a passage like this that skews to the other extreme. This is the worst day of my life. I can't believe that I have to do things like this, even though I really don't want to. I'm so nervous and I can hardly stand it, and I just wish I didn't have to deal with situations like this. Here, as we can all see, we have a heavy dose of attitude, and unlike the first, nothing by way of facts. We get the narrator's commentary on the situation, but no information about the situation itself. No description of anything. So as a result, we might sympathize with the narrator and feel bad that they clearly feel bad, but we don't know anything about why they feel that way. Are they blowing the situation out of proportion? Are they responding reasonably? We don't know, and we'll never know because we don't have any facts to base that judgment on. This is an example of the very common case of writers who do a good job of expressing themselves or setting the tone, but not of providing enough details to engage a reader. Okay, we have a clear sense of frustration and anxiety, but that's all we have. It's not really a story so much as it is a declaration of mood. So to fix these two problems, to find the right balance between details and commentary, we can go back to Bitzer's idea. Facts become weighted when we participate with them. Meaning, in other words, comes from our interaction with experience. That is, you can give your readers details to interact with and then guide their interaction so that they draw the right conclusions. With our first example, we had a lot of facts but no guidance, and in the second, we had all guidance but no facts. So obviously we want something in the middle, something that gives our readers enough detail to interact with and enough commentary to show them how to interact with it. And there are a couple of ways to do it. The most common and straightforward would probably be to add some attitude cues to the details you present. Maybe something like this. The sun glared in, blinding me while I drove toward Lucy's house, and the clouds, enviably free in the clear blue sky, offered no shady relief. Lucy's house. I tried listening to some smooth jazz to calm myself down, but my heart kept racing as my stomach twisted in knots. It was going to be a terrible day. And let's be clear, we're not talking about prose style, but about something more fundamental. See, in this version, we get enough facts to know what's going on. The speaker is driving to Lucy's house, and we get some attitude-guiding commentary to help us to know how to feel about going to Lucy's house. We're supposed to feel nervous and bad. Of course, that could be executed perhaps more artfully, but the point is that even without the most elevated prose, this version works better at a fundamental level than either of the first two. No amount of artful style can save a paragraph that gives us a bunch of who cares facts or a pile of detached emotion. Instead, get your rhetorical balance right first, and that will make a much bigger difference much faster than splitting hairs over your sentence design ever would. But there are other ways to achieve a balance too. Yeah, a tasteful mix of detail and commentary can get a reader where they need to go, but you can also be deliberate in curating details, selecting the facts that will influence readers in the right way, rather than just telling them outright how to feel about those details. For example, in spite of the smooth jazz playing in the car, my heart still raced and my knuckles gleamed white as I drove towards Lucy's house. The odometer ticked off the miles, each one getting me closer to Lucy's scrutiny, sarcasm, and sighs. A meadowlark belted a melody from a fence post beside the road and then flew off toward the foothills while I trundled on, enclosed by a compact chassis on a highway with only one more exit to go. Here, the passage doesn't tell us how to feel about the details. We don't get abstractions or explicitly emotional words like we did with the previous example. Instead, we get carefully selected details that all accumulate in the direction of anxiety and reluctance. These aren't bare descriptions of everything that could be described. Instead, we get focused descriptions of a curated set of details that all work together to evoke the intended emotional response. And of course, even though I can only present discrete examples, we're really on a sliding scale between bare facts and pure commentary. You might settle more on the side of our third example, mixing abstract commentary with concrete details, or you might join me on my quest to see how close I can get to bare facts without losing their sense of meaning. However you do it though, the underlying principle is a useful guide. For the most part, we understand the world we live in by interacting with it. We learn that chocolate is delicious the same way we learn that celery isn't food, by tasting it, and we learn that school is boring and napping is awesome by doing them. Sure, someone could just tell you that celery is a stalk of irritating stink, but you really know it when you try it. And the same thing is at work in our writing. Writing doesn't give our readers actual experiences, but it simulates experiences. We derive meaning in life by participating with the facts of the world, and we find meaning in writing by participating in the facts of the text. If we take Bitzer seriously then, we need both. Give your readers details they can participate in, and then guide their participation so they experience those details in the way you want them to. As he says, the experiential world presents to us many weighted or personal facts, which are what they are because our participation gives them a status and invests them with a value they would not otherwise enjoy. And that, my friends, is the key to writing that your readers will not just enjoy, but also care about, because it is also the key to getting people invested in the world.
And yet here I sit as uninvested as I've ever been.
I mean, you say that, but some might argue that you've only gotten more invested in the show over time.
I don't know what you're talking about, and your sources are clearly very questionable.
Okay, whatever you say. Well, maybe we'll give our disaffected friend a break and call it there. If you're looking for some personalized help with your writing, check out the links in the description. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Have some fun balancing detail and commentary in whatever you're writing, and we'll have more good things to talk about in the next one.